Good morning, and welcome to the Sunrise Safari. Before I carry on with my usual introduction, let's just watch this for a moment. We've got a young male visitor at the den. And the cubs are particularly curious about him. Fairly certain it's a male. Making all kinds of submissive noises and running away from the cubs whenever they tried to approach him. And I'm going to be really quiet for a moment because there's a bird calling in the background. Playing with November there. In the background, every now and again, you might hear a sound that goes gook, 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 gook. It's the ground hornbills, and there's one of them somewhere between us and quarantine. I can hear it calling. Now that that's calmed down, good morning again. My name is Jamie. I have Tebs on camera with me this morning. James is out and about with Wiem, heading towards his newly discovered den. And don't forget that this is a live safari, so we're coming to you from Djuma and Arathusa in the Sabi Sands in the Greater Kruger National Park of South Africa. Currently sitting at the Gallagher Shortcut Den. Please send us through your questions on #SafariLive on Twitter, or email them through to questions@wildearth.tv. It's a really nice chilly start to the morning, which, if the weather reports are to be believed, we must take absolute advantage of. It's 21 degrees, which is 70 degrees Fahrenheit. Means that I am currently wearing a jacket, although I think I should probably just let myself freeze for the first and only time over the next 2 days. It is predicted to go well over 100 degrees Fahrenheit over the next 2 days. I think we're going to be absolutely boiling. It looks as though all of our hyenas have dashed over the other side of the den. I think when we first arrived we were starting, and I know we've been sent some amazing information on the various hyena dynamics of this clan, that James did a bit of a summary of yesterday evening. And we're still getting to grips with who's who. I definitely saw June, the cub previously known as May, but is now named June. She was here earlier playing with a stick, and then there's that young male that we've just seen now. I'm not entirely sure exactly who he is. As I said, still coming to terms. Haven't named him as far as I know. Let's see if we can get a view of them from the other side. They've moved to that covered entrance. Let's see if I can start. Phew. Yay, Rusty's immobilizer hasn't quite kicked in yet. For those of you who are new to this process, Rusty's entire power system acts like a jamming device. So when we're powered up with the camera on, if the immobilizer on the vehicle is turned off, then we can't leave. There's the tree. One thing about the Gallagher shortcut den is it's not the easiest to navigate around. So our arrival is never subtle or particularly quiet. Here we go. What you up to, you naughty things? Here through bushes. Actually, let me try going nose first. Driving too close to the entrances to the dens, so we just have to bear with me as I do several 20-point turns so that we can get a view of what's happening here. Looking at this male who's playing with June. And Penny Pine, you were wondering if it was the male that was injured the other day. I'm not entirely sure. I don't think so, but it's entirely possible, although he does look to have a couple of scars around his ear. So it could be him. It's very common for clan males to have more than the average number of injuries. There's some growling happening on the other side. Probably one of the mothers warning him not to get too rough with the young cubs. And of course, now that we've found a perfect position, they've all decided to disappear behind a bush. I'm just listening to the sound of the ground hornbill as well. Trying to work out exactly where it is. It's close to us. That's the interesting thing about hyena dens is that they... What are you squeaking about? Is that they come with a great deal of action, but not always on the side that we need it to be. Turn taxim down. And I can hear them all playing on the other side, but they are just beyond our reach. Now, let's see. Okay, bear with me one moment. I'm just going to get hold of James on the Game Drive channel. FC is struggling to get hold of him. And as soon as I have an opportunity on the radio, James for Jamie. James, FC is struggling to contact you, but there's fresh and Kwanzaa for Mafazi Ingwe around FC, and Steph says he can hear alarm calls around the dam.
Okay, copy. I've just driven past. I didn't hear anything. I'll go and look again.
Here we go. Every now and again, a hyena dashes past, and pops out around the side before vanishing on the other side. And I must say, please, to the viewer who sent us all of that information, let us know who you are and what your name is. We only sort of got letters of your name on the email address, but we'd love to know who it was, because we got sent an incredibly comprehensive breakdown of the different hyenas of the clan, which is incredibly useful, particularly for James and myself, who started working here around June. It's useful to have that information at our fingertips and records from a time before we were working for WildEarth. Come on, pups. Cubs, not pups. Definitely don't want to make that mistake. Oh, there's a woodpecker up there. You can hear it tapping away up in the buffalo thorn. Looks like, I think it's a bearded, it's hard to tell. It's at the top of the buffalo thorn, Tevs, sort of 3/4 of the way up. Head tapping. Yep, just above the, oh, there we go, that's not, but that's a, oh, how cool is that? Awesome. That's not the woodpecker, but it was a chin-spot batis, which we don't always get to have on camera. That was also well done, Tebs. Really nice, clear view of it as well. I forget the amazing things that this camera can do. So there you go, for those of you working on your bird lists. The woodpecker is just above that, there it is. Tapping away. And at this angle, tricky to tell, it's not a bearded. Looks like it might be a cardinal. And woodpeckers are fascinating creatures. A bird with a tongue wrapped around the base of its brain. Oh, here come the hyenas. Sorry, we'll get back to that. Morning, little ones. And at this time of the morning, it's the perfect time to come and visit a den. Now Georgie, we're actually seeing 3 cubs. And generally with hyenas, we use the term cubs rather than pups. And the reason behind that is they are more closely in their evolutionary line related to cats than they are to dogs, believe it or not. Although they still are in their own separate family, but we refer to the babies as cubs. And you wanted to know how old they are. That little one that you're seeing now with the spots, or the beginnings of spots, this little one is November, so named because it was born in November. The other 2 were born sometime in December. So they're about a month old. They were born about the beginning of December. The little one with the spots on the left is November, born beginning of November, so close to 2 months old. And then June is coming up on 7 months old. That's the one on the right. Lots and lots of vocalizations happening as well. Oh, Mom, you better be more vigilant. Your cubs being manhandled. Watchful eye of this younger hyena. Looks like you just anal pasted around there. They've all moved across to the opposite side. So in the time, while they're spending time playing on that side, let's head across to James so that he can say good morning to all, and we'll be back with you very shortly.
Good morning, everybody. We are at the other hyena den, and there is just this mother. We don't know if she's got little ones in there. I think she does. I think that they're very small and they're not yet able to come outside. We just thought we'd have a quick turn past here, and then we're going to make our way out again. There are leopard tracks shouting, or leopard tracks. There are leopard tracks around the camp, around the dam, the Juma Dam, and there are some alarm calls apparently, and Steph is on foot in that area following up, so we're going to go and give him a hand. We're not too far from there. My name is James, for those of you who don't know. On camera is Vium. Very nice. He's got his hat back today, you see, so he's very happy. And we're going to make our way out of here. And as we do so, just remember, as Jamie has said to you, we are live, of course. And sorry, excuse me. Go again. As Jamie said, we are live, so hashtag Safari Live us on tweet if you want to talk to us, and questions at WildEarth.tv. If you're on the email, we had some wonderful discussions yesterday about bits and pieces of the ecology, bits and pieces of South Africa, and the live safaris and that sort of stuff. So please feel free to talk to us, and you are encouraged to do so. And there was one distressing comment from a viewer yesterday, who was a new viewer, who said that he or she would keep quiet until she knew a bit more. Well, that is not necessary. If you are totally clueless, that's all the more reason to send us some questions. Let's head back across to Jamie, see what she's up to, and we'll carry on going this way.
Little November, I think, is quite happy to have a playmate. It's so fascinating to watch how gently these older cubs usually play with each other, or too much, because they know that the minute that little baby squeaks, makes a noise, mom is going to come rushing over to discipline. But it's so interesting now to watch how tentative this male was when he first approached to now. Jenny M, I'm glad that no matter what kind of day you're having, the twin hyena cubs always bring a smile to your face. There's nothing more entertaining than a highly active hyena den, even if it means that sometimes the action disappears onto the other side for a while. Ooh, rough. Got a little bit too rough there. I always think that hyenas are one of the most entertaining creatures we get out here. They're definitely my favorite predator by far. And personally, I have a soft spot, even though the little ones, the little brown cubs, are terribly cute, I have a soft spot for hyena cubs that are roughly around June's age. That curious stage where they get really brave and start to come and investigate you. I've had some wonderful experiences with them. And the reason that I said that this individual was a male is, first of all, from the submissive behavior, but also the shape of the penis. It's very difficult, as most of our regular viewers know, to tell the difference between male and female hyenas. And that's because with their high levels of androgen and testosterone, the females have an extended clitoris fused with the vaginal tract that forms a very penis-shaped instrument. Yeah, I've got a stick. You can't have my stick. No, it's my stick. But in this little one, with the males, they have a slightly pinched look to the end of that penis. And that's usually what gives them away as a male. Can be tricky to tell, particularly with young cubs. it's very, very difficult to see that shape. But when they're a bit older, and especially when they're at a hyena den or interacting with other hyenas, then that becomes slightly erect and you can see the shape more clearly. Which side of our cubs disappeared to? The ones are dashing around. There's also an older hyena. From what I can see, there's an older hyena that's lying up further away from the den, watching the comings and goings. My guess would be that that's June's mom, so the hyena with the scarred back. But it's a guess, I can't really see it. It's just the fact that she's here suggests to me there's a good chance that her mother is as well, or his mother is. Go around the other side and see if we can see them. Well, we can't move, so we're going to sit and wait for the action to come to us. One of those joys of Rusty. So Roy Phelps, you were wondering whether hyenas have really good hearing. And with those big radar ears, I can see exactly why you might ask that. Yes, they do. Their sense of hearing is exceptional, and that's especially because of the social structure that they have. Being able to hear the other members of the clan call and contact between them becomes crucial, as well as to be able to hear when the rest of the clan is feeding. So what the members of the clan will do is they'll spread out in an evening, sometimes in groups of 2 or 3, but quite often on their own, and they go off foraging. And if they find something that is of interest, or if they encounter another clan, then they're going to call to the other members. That is the highest pitch hyena I've ever heard. That was definitely one of the cubs. That was such a squeaky contact call. But yes, they do have an incredible sense of hearing, as well as a phenomenal sense of smell, which makes sense. If you're going to be able to find and scavenge carcasses, the better your sense of smell, the easier it will be. The most impressive part of hyenas and their various senses is actually the way that their brains work and the way that they interact with each other. So they've got incredible problem-solving abilities, as well as a social communication system that, from studies done, suggests that they're definitely more intelligent than lions, but almost certainly, in certain respects, as intelligent, if not more so, than chimpanzees. And there have been several studies done. They're just playing, having a wonderful morning. Yes, there have been several studies done in terms of putting meat in boxes that require, in order to get into the boxes, to get access to it, it requires the hyenas to work together. And they were given that as a puzzle to hyenas, worked it out fairly quickly in roughly the same time that chimpanzees did. And then what they did as the next part of the study was to take one of those hyenas away out of the puzzle and bring in a hyena that had never seen it. And almost immediately it was communicated to the new hyena exactly how to solve the puzzle and to get the meat out, faster than the chimpanzees could do it. So their communication levels are extraordinary. Cub bouncing around. At the moment, I think that this is probably the best view we're going to have. Gambling through the trees. Brian, you're right. Having chatted about the different ways to tell the sex of a hyena, you were saying, isn't the size of a hyena a good indication of whether it is male or female? Brian, yes. In the adults, absolutely. So an adult female is much bigger, much larger than an adult male, and that's fairly clearly visible. Although clan males tend to be slightly larger than their nomadic counterparts, so just in terms of access to food and the way that they've interact. They've got a little bit more security and therefore are slightly bigger than nomadic males that haven't yet found their place in a clan. The difficulty comes when you've got sub-adult ages. Sub-adult at around between a year to 2 years, or even younger than that. So with the cubs, that is where it's really, really tricky to tell the difference. And the difficulty also is that with young females, their penis shape isn't as clearly distinguishable from the male, or their pseudo-penis shape isn't as clearly distinguishable from the male, because they haven't yet given birth. It's only after the birthing process that it becomes slightly more open and extended. So it's a tricky one, and that's why you'll notice we're always quite careful. We'll say that we think it's a male, we think it's a female, but unless you've really had an opportunity to examine the hyena's genitals closely, you are going to struggle. And it's usually more accurate, unless you're very lucky, to actually judge by the behavior that you're seeing. So the best way, obviously, to tell if it's a female is if she has cubs, and then if she's showing dominance over other hyenas, because usually males don't demonstrate that behavior. It's gone quiet at the den, and in order to reposition to see anything, we will have to head over to James for now, and then we will catch up with you very shortly.
Right, everybody, we've come into the area just in front of WildEarth camp, where apparently a female leopard's tracks were seen very recently, and she came out. We drove past the final control this morning, and Steph then walked to the final control, and he found leopard tracks sort of 2 minutes afterwards on top of our vehicle tracks. Now, of course, that normally gets everybody excited and makes you think, well, we'll definitely find her. Well, so often, even when you're straight after the tracks like that, they are such wily creatures, these leopards. So who knows? It's a female leopard, so quite probably Karula. We've just driven past in front on the drainage line in front of the camp, and we've found some very relaxed looking nyala. So I'm not convinced that she went that way. She may have come sort of across the dam, and so we're going to go and check from that direction now. Very exciting. I do hope we find her. It'd be lovely to spend an extended period with her. We had about 10 minutes with her yesterday, after Ted's pulled off a great spot. So let's see what we can do today. The sun has just peeped up over the horizon. There is not a cloud in the sky. We're in for another scorcher. There is not one cloud predicted. Let's stop and listen quickly. It's a good idea just to listen for some alarm calls. Right, let's head back to Jamie. She's got some shouting hyenas.
A moment ago, there was some seriously submissive giggling happening. I'm not sure what happened on the other side of the den. I think that one of the cubs got a little bit upset at the roughhousing, and Mom stepped in and disciplined the older two cubs. They've dashed off, from what I can tell. June and the male seem to have disappeared. They're still wandering around. No, here we go, they're back out again. And is that Corky or is that June's mother? With the scar on her back. No, that's Corky. Lots of hyenas wandering around. Watching the way that these dynamics play out is always completely fascinating. Beautiful hyena in the morning sun. I think personally that hyenas are actually quite attractive creatures. And Scorpion 73, you're wondering why their necks are longer than the other big cats. I would say that partly it's to do with muscle attachments for the jaws, as well as just their overall body structure. So they're adapted for covering much larger distances than the other big cats usually do. They've adapted for an almost, but not quite, nomadic lifestyle. Grabbed its tail there. Which means that their body structure with those huge shoulders and slightly smaller back end all plays a role in the way that they move, and it makes for a very energy efficient gait. And I suppose also it's useful for pushing into carcasses and getting the most out of it. But I don't think necessarily the length of the neck is a huge adaptation. It might just be the way that they have evolved when compared to big cats. Might also just be the different hunting styles, I suppose. No, that doesn't make sense. I was trying to work out whether a longer neck means more or less power, but I think it just depends on where the power is coming from. In hyenas, their jaw and their bite strength is the most powerful, one of the most powerful out here, capable of crushing bones. And that adult female just watching the shenanigans of the others with a wary eye. She's seen it all before. Oh, there we go. Diane, who's watching in Michigan, is keeping an eye, or has a map going of where the different places are in this reserve. Diane, you want to know where they are? This hyena den is on Gallagher Shortcut. It's about halfway up Gallagher Shortcut and about, I would say, 50 meters into the block to the east of Gallagher Shortcut. So that is where the Gallagher Shortcut den is. James's den, the one that he's discovered, the most recently discovered den, is on the other side of the Gallagher Shortcut drainage line. So from Mvubu Road, about, I would say, 3/4 of the way up Mvubu Road, so towards the north. It is on the western side of Mvubu Road. So they're in the same block, if that makes sense. They're both between Gallagher Shortcut and Mvubu Road. This den is closer to Gallagher Shortcut. James's den is closer to Mvubu Road, which is why we refer to it as the Mvubu Road den. And then we refer to this one as the Gallagher Shortcut den. Hello. Corky. Plus one of the twins. What are you mischiefs up to? Chewing on a root. She's a very, very attentive mother. She seems to be constantly watching them. Watching them tumble up and down this hill is always highly entertaining. Looks like such a fun game. Oh, Mom's coming in to intervene. Come on, Mom, they're just playing. Slipping upside down. I love those white toes. That is just too cute. Hey, look at that. Spots are coming. And there you can see what I mean about how difficult it is to judge the sex of a cub. Munching on a blade of grass. Siberia Zumi. Let's see. You were wondering if the hyena clan that we're watching has a clan name. Not amongst the different guides. I would suggest that it is known as the Juma clan, since that is clearly, although not necessarily the only extent of their range, it's clearly the core part of their territory around Juma, given that every hyena den that we've followed so far has been around Juma. head over, very curious as to what's happening there. Those sounds are coming from their mother, and she's chasing another hyena away. Looks like that young male. She is very, very attentive. And now giving herself a clean. Well, there you go, Debbie. You wanted to know. Oh, jewel mischief there. You wanted to know where the males hang out when the females are not with or when they're with the youngsters. And Debbie, this is why sticking around a hyena den is such a useful place to be, because very often the young males will come by and visit. They'll pay a visit to the den site, possibly even the den site that they were raised in. Sorry, Debbie, I've just got distracted. I'm sending Teb's pussing all over the place. I'm watching the dynamic that's playing out in front of me. I know you have to view it through trees, but there's some interesting behavior happening. The cubs are being very bold towards this young visiting male. And they're wandering straight up to him, and he's showing every sign of nervousness and submissiveness because he's just been told off by their mother. And there she goes again, sending him on his way. But what's interesting about this dynamic that's playing out is that the cubs are anal pasting, which is always amazing to me that they demonstrate such adult territorial behavior at such a young age. I don't know how effective it is, but they definitely go through the motions. So already they've got that instinct as to what being an adult entails. And that to me is fascinating. It's all part of their dominance displays. It is so entertaining to watch. Debbie, if the young males haven't come back to visit the den, which is more often than not, they wander around, quite often around the outskirts of the clan's territory, sleeping in drainage lines, moving about pretty much on their own, sometimes with other males, and they spend a little bit of time with them. Then what they'll do is they'll start roaming further and further afield. Now, clan males are unrelated males who've been accepted into the clan to provide mating opportunities for the females. And I'm just going to duck again. It's so interesting. I would like to reposition. Let me see if I can switch on. Just because their behavior is fascinating. There we go. Good. When hyenas reach a certain age, it's always tricky at this den deciding where you want to be, because now she's taking it around. So when they reach a certain age and the males wish to have breeding opportunities, then they'll start to move further outside of the clan's boundaries, eventually dispersing fairly far in terms of where they end up. And it takes them a very long time. They spend a great deal of their lives being totally nomadic, sleeping in drainage lines and exploring other areas. So far as going quite far outside of the clan's territory. Sorry, bear with me as we navigate around here. It just requires a bit of careful treatment. Oh, we have arrived where the action seems to be. So Roy is watching in Maryland. You're wondering how long a hyena will stay, or hyenas will stay at the same den. And the answer is, it depends depends. With young cubs like this, it tends to be a slightly longer time period, as we've seen with this Gallagher shortcut den. Hello, you lot. Who have we got here? Bundle of cubs of all ages. Oh, we've definitely got June. Oh, got a fright. So Roy, oh cute. The younger the cubs, generally the longer a hyena will... Excuse me? Hello? Have you come to steal my oil caps? You little mischiefs. I'm watching you. Hello. And this is why you need eyes in the back of your head at a hyena den. Because the next thing you know, somebody's chewing on your tires. Right, let's try that answer again. The younger the cubs, generally the longer the adults will keep them at a den, just because moving them is quite dangerous. That being said, Corky moved her youngsters to this den at a very young age, and she managed to do it safely. Whoopsie daisy. Tripped over the side of the den and rolled right over. And as the cubs start to get older, they obviously create more waste. That starts to build up parasites around the den. Obviously, the bigger the cub, the more waste it produces. Ooh. Some serious disagreements going on there. And there's a hyena that is conditioned to having its bottom bit bitten. You can see its instant defense mechanism is to plop down on the ground. Oh, what's happening up there? Serious interaction going on with the cubs there. Lots and lots of vocalizations. The hyena's showing there. There you go. You can see what I mean about that defensive posture. Those hyena teeth are sharp. One on the right, now the one sitting down, is clearly bigger, but almost being dominated by the slightly younger cub on top of it. Oh, in the shoulder blades. Look at those faces.
Okay, copy. You relocated last night.
Just going to be quiet for a moment so you can hear the noises coming out of these two. Oh, ouch. Ow, ow, ow. That's the lip. That's the lip. Ouch, that cannot be comfortable. Some seriously rough play going on here. Oh, I'm done. I'm out of this. Had enough of those needle teeth. I'm chatting a bit about the way that den sites work. Spotted Aussie, you were wondering whether at this tiny age, the mothers of November and the twins would have carried them when they move them, or whether or not they follow the mother. My guess would be carrying them, but we don't really know how Corky moved her cubs. She showed us that she was attempting to move before she actually did by carrying the one cub, but then there'd be absolute panic and pandemonium because the other cub would start to squeak, and then she'd drop the one cub to go and look at the other cub, and then the other cub would disappear back into the den. Oh, you naughty. You are so naughty. The dynamics that you can see while these hyenas are playing, quite fascinating. That little one is showing the most dominant behavior and is the aggressor in this. And it is just play at the moment, but it carries quite a vital purpose in terms of establishing hierarchies. Oh, you got yourself in the middle now. You can see how they target the softer areas. The bottom, the genitals, the lips and the ears. Oh. And there's some serious roughhousing, and Lisa W. said it seems as though playing could possibly get out of hand. And yes, they can inflict some quite nasty injuries on each other, unlikely to, because usually when it starts to get too much, they run away. Oh, ouch, that ear. But there is a darker side to the behavior that we see, and it could get out of hand, and skin could get broken, ears could get torn. Here's that high-pitched call again. It's the... No, I think that's one of the cubs. It is. It's one of the cubs. That high-pitched contact call, the baby's just learned to find its voice. It's learned the whooping call of the hyena and is practicing and having a look at the effect that it has on the others. That was the cub making that sound, and I think actually it was one of the younger cubs. I think. That's incredible. I didn't know they did that. Oh. That's so cute. Woo! The sweetest little squeaky sound. Oh. Now, the one little cub who is constantly the aggressor here is now finding itself very much ganged up upon and is actually quite unhappy. Oof. And they don't hold back. And without mom there to protect it, it's actually found, I think, that it's bitten off more than it could chew with these two. And they've instantly found the weak link. And the sounds that you can hear are the smallest one attempting to escape this. And every time it tries to run away, it gets caught up with. Here we go. Now, spotted hyenas are completely unique in their social structure. They are the only truly matriarchal mammal out here. And James Richards, you were wondering if they're the only ones with such complex social structures and whether they're unique in the high levels, with the females having high levels of testosterone. Yes. Not even brown hyena have a situation where the females are larger, stronger, and more dominant. This is completely unique. They're also the only creature with a fused urethra and vaginal tract. And the jury's still out as to why it is that they've evolved this way. We still don't really know. Now, the other matriarchal system that of course springs to mind is elephants. But in elephants, the males are much, much larger and actually do dominate the females in a social environment. That being said, I say that they're the only creature with a complex social system. I think we're still learning a great deal about the way that animals interact with each other. I think that hyenas are the most intelligent predator, which is why I think they've got the most fascinating bonds between them. Suddenly everybody's gone nice and still. Look at this hyena down here on the right. What are you doing? You funny creature. Standing with legs splayed. Nope. Gonna move off. Now, Jane, you've asked a fascinating question. You've said contact calls, other members of the clan. Sorry, Jen, I'll be with you now. Some of the members that were here have moved further afield and are now contact calling. And it's one of my favorite sounds out here. Which is why I'm so blown away that that cub was imitating it. Whatever's being said, it's not of all that much interest. So Jen, your question was about when do hyenas eat, because you never see food at the den. Right, interestingly enough, if you read all the textbooks, they will say that spotted hyenas never bring food back to the den. They'll go out, the mothers will go out and scavenge, they'll have or hunt, they'll have their meal away from the den, and then they'll come back and feed their cubs. That being said, that is not entirely accurate. As the cubs start to get older, we will see hyena mothers dragging kills back towards the den. At the moment, they haven't needed to. Their cubs are too young to be eating meat. It's only at about 6 months old they'll start to chew and consume a little bit. And even then, it's more out of curiosity than anything else, because hyenas will lactate easily up to a year, and sometimes even a year and a half. They will feed their cubs, depending on their ranking. So the higher ranking females will feed their cubs for longer. But they do bring food back. And it's more a way of the adults teaching, I think, the youngsters to eat and enjoy meat. And in theory, the books say they don't bring meat back to the den. I promise you they do. I have seen them do it. We've seen them do it, actually. The regular viewers will have been around with us at the Aubrey's Road den, which was littered with things like legs and heads and carcasses brought back by the females. And I've followed drag marks for kilometers before that have reached dens. In the other reserve I used to work at, we followed a female hyena for 2.5 kilometers, dragging half an impala back to her den site. And when she got there, her cubs, that were about 3 months old at the time, were totally disinterested in eating the carcass, but they were very interested in exploring it and climbing inside. Here's that call again. Have you found your voice? That is so interesting. Every time the hyenas go onto the other side of the den, the cub and its newly discovered contact call then starts to call to bring everybody back so that it can come out and play. It is November. Sorry, it's not one of the little ones. It's November that's learned to call. I had no idea that they could do that at 2 months of age. Anal pasting, contact calling. Oh, but you're so clever. Behaving like a big girl now. Watch this. All anal pasting. Oh, their behavior is incredible. All anal pasting on top of each other's anal paste. There we go. Now I think the cub's going to go and try it. Going to go have a sniff, definitely, and possibly even demonstrate it. And there we go again. Essentially what they're doing is they're straddling blades of grass and then inverting their anal glands to produce that paste. Now, Gail, you've asked an interesting question, which I think, of course, springs to the mind of many people, which is, how do hyenas mate, essentially? And you're wondering whether I've ever seen it. I have never seen it. I live in hope for the day that I see it, because I think it must be a phenomenally interesting process to watch. I have seen the courtship, at which point the male tries to be as submissive as possible at all times. But it can go on for hours on end before the female decides to let him mate. The actual process is, as you can imagine, somewhat tricky and involves a slight inversion of the pseudo-penis in order to allow for penetration by the male. I only know it from books. I have never seen it work in practice. I've never seen it happen in practice. I can only imagine that it is an interesting process to observe, especially from a behavioral point of view. And in terms of giving birth, no, I've never watched a hyena give birth. We know that a lot of new mothers very frequently lose cubs because their birthing canal is incredibly restricted. And for the first time, they often struggle to get both cubs, if not at least one of them, out. And quite often there's a very high recorded number of stillbirths in young mothers. It gets easier as time goes on. It's so interesting watching these older, almost fully grown cubs come back to meet the cubs. That's essentially what they're doing. They're being introduced and getting to know the lie of the land. There you go, presenting his genitals for sniffing by the cub. Typical hyena greeting ceremony. And once again, anal pasting that somewhat abused piece of grass. Sure. Watch this little cub. Oh, it's got an itch. That's what's happening. I was trying to work out why its body language was so strange. It's because something's itchy. Probably a burr or a thorn. And even at 2 months old, their genitals become erect when greeting strangers. So interesting. And what's the most fascinating about this is that November actually called the hyenas across to her. Look at those eyes. You can't help but look at them and think that there's something incredibly intelligent happening in that head. There is so much learning going on. Well, we can record this morning as the day that November, as far as I could tell, the day that November found its voice and learned to do the typical whooping contact call, albeit in a higher pitch than I've ever heard in my entire life. But I'm very impressed, and I'm sure you all are as well. And once this adult disappears over the top of the den, I think things are going to... Oh, no, hold on, November's back out again. Paul Rizzo, I think you might be right. I don't know, Paul Rizzo thinks that November might be a leader one day. It's interesting to watch the dynamics because, as far as we can tell, her mother, Pretty, is submissive at least to Corky. So it seems as though Corky is quite a high-ranking female, which, if the textbooks are right, means that her cubs will inherit a higher-ranking status than Pretty's. That being said, I think hyena dens are a hell of a lot more complex than we actually realize. Okay, well, the action's moved across to the other side of the den for now, which means that in order to start up, I'm going to send you back across to James. Let's find out what he's been up to with his morning.
Right, everybody, hello. Sorry about our prolonged absence, but the hyenas have been doing a very good job of entertaining you by the sounds of things. Now, I'm afraid we don't have particularly good news. There's been quite a lot of squirrel shouting. Squirrels, of course, will alarm call vociferously if they see a leopard. They will also alarm call vociferously if they see a slender mongoose or a snake. They also have exceptional eyes, which means they can see for a long way. And so we've been driving around here, I've been walking in the drainage lines, and the squirrels have been shouting. There've been the old virtual starling giving alarm. Steph's on foot around here. I haven't found one track. There was some Nyala alarm calling in here. Now, this is not to say that this female leopard isn't basically under our noses, because she's not easy to spot. No leopard is easy to spot unless they want to be spotted. So, we're going to keep trying, but I'm afraid that's just the way it goes with these leopards. We're going to do our level best to keep following up, and we'll follow the alarm calls and see what happens. Marvellous that it seems there's a great deal of shouting going on at the hyena den. I did hear another hyena calling to the south of us, which of course could be a hyena that's walked past here and inspired the squirrels to shout at it. Who knows? And I'm sure that hyena that was calling to the south of us, as I heard the ones calling to the north where you were, was calling in response. Lots of hyena tracks all over the road, lots of civet tracks all over the road. But not much in the way of leopards. Can be a deeply frustrating process tracking a leopard. Of course, then if you do actually find the thing, you feel like you're a god. And then you also go into this process of thought where you assume the next time you find a leopard track, you're definitely going to find the leopard, because now you've figured out how to do it. And then the leopards show you that in fact you haven't figured out how to do it, and a large proportion of your finding them the last time was due down to blind luck. So it is with the elusive spotted cat. So we've kind of been doing circles around the area here where Steph saw the tracks, and where we've heard all the squirrels alarm calling. There are monkeys in the camp. We're pretty sure that if they could see the leopard, well, if they could see the leopard, they would be yelling their heads off. They do not tolerate leopards around here or anywhere. There was some Nyala alarm calling. The other thing is, of course, that there's a Wahlberg's eagle sitting right on the riding crow's nest on the top of that tree there. And you see, that will cause half the squirrels in the land to go ballistic as well. So whether the squirrels are alarming at the Wahlberg's eagle, I did manage to flush a slender mongoose while I was in the drainage line, so they might be shouting at that. They might just be shouting at each other because it's a sunny day. Alarm calling at the thought of another dry and hot midday. Who knows? Just unplug and replug in again. Anyway, let's see what happens. It's 6 o'clock in the morning, and so the sun is starting to beat down on us already. It's amazing. Right, here we go. It's very pleasant wandering around here trying to track a leopard, I must say. And it smells very, it smells a bit like a fertilizer factory out here. I think possibly because, you know, the buffalo have dropped so much dung and therefore so much urea all over this area that it smells like a farm field that's just been recently fertilized. The other thing I found is, while I was in there, and we can't get a vehicle in there, unfortunately, is a hornbill nest. And the hornbill nest was an amazing thing. Just off the ground, probably about 3 feet off the ground, a little hole in the tree, a little slit like that. How on earth a female hornbill got in there to try and lay an egg, I don't know. But inside it was a little hornbilling going... Stuck my head in and I looked and you could just see this beak begging. So that was quite fun. It's the great advantage of being on foot, of course. You don't see those things unless you are on foot. Anyway, we'll just keep an eye out down this drainage line. We're now driving over the dam wall at Juma Dam, of course. I would be keeping a very beady eye also on the Juma Dam cam to see that leopard doesn't decide that she needs a drink. But if that happens, I'm pretty sure you will hear the monkeys in the camp going ballistic. They will start shouting. I know you've got a question about tracking. I'm just going to get it again so that I understand it correctly. Joel, you want to know if there's any way to tell from a track where a leopard or a lion has made a kill, and if so, how? No, Joel, it's absolutely impossible to tell if a leopard has made a kill or not from the tracks. All they leave is a footprint. So that's the only thing you can tell. You can tell age if you're experienced. You can tell, obviously, whether it's male or female or not. And you might even be able to tell down to the individual if you're particularly familiar with the tracks of the different individual leopards or lions. But you can't tell what they had for breakfast yesterday or whether they have a kill. Now, I was walking through the drainage line here and I had some small squirrels alarm calling. I did then flush a slender mongoose, so the squirrels may have been alarm calling at that, but we're just going to check the road carefully here to see if she hasn't crossed. Steph is still wandering about there. Jen B, you are absolutely correct. You say that somebody needs to educate the squirrels on the cry wolf syndrome. Yeah, there's squirrels around here cry wolf all the time. Certainly there's some around the camp which yell wolf all day long. And it's extremely irritating. They also, of course, have got very good eyes. So you might find the squirrel alarm calling and you drive towards where the squirrel is. It'll be looking in the distance, and if it spotted a leopard at, I don't know, say 100 meters, it could be shouting at a leopard 100 meters away. Now, to our eyes, especially without elevation, almost impossible to see. So I'm going to come as far as this tree here, in which I've seen a leopard once, and that was the other day, and yet every time I go past it, I assume that there should be a leopard in it because it is a perfect leopard tree. Jackleberry. Right? Karula is not sleeping in its leafy boughs at the moment. And I see no tracks here at all. Hyenas everywhere, civets everywhere, leopards not so much. Turn down through here. Hello, Roy. You, I believe, are a new viewer. Roy. Thank you for talking to us and welcome. Welcome on board the largest game drive in the world. You want to know when it last rained. Hear my voice broke there as I said when it last rained. It was so long ago it made me teary. With enough moisture in the air I may have cried. It last rained, Roy, probably before the big cat week. I think we had one little sprinkle afterwards. So yeah, I'd say sort of I guess sort of beginning of November we probably had the last sort of 10 millimeter rain, and that's not a lot. Maybe another 10 millimeters after that. Well, nothing in December, certainly nothing in January. A couple of threatenings, a couple of spits here and there with a sort of 1 millimeter, 2 millimeter. So that's all right. Okay, let's head back across the hyena den. Apparently there's some shouting going on there. We're going to keep looking for this leopard. We'll see you just now.
We've just been watching November call, so it's definitely her. All of a sudden, Mom came charging onto the scene, scattering hyenas in every direction. This has been so interesting to watch. And this one individual, the one closest to me, has been fascinated with her the whole time, with November that is, and has been anal pasting all around the entrance to the den, and I really don't know where it fits in to the dynamic of what's going on. November's just been bouncing around like a little pinball, irritating everyone she can find, and I'm thinking it's a she, judging from the behavior we've seen today. And now terrorizing June. June, of course, knowing that despite the fact that those puppy teeth are like needles and targeting all the soft spots, if it reacts too strongly, Mom will come and exert some discipline. This ouch. Yeah. I'm done with you now. I'm going to go terrorize someone else. Mom. Go terrorize Mom. This hyena in front is still constantly calling and constantly anal pasting. And I don't know what it means. I don't know why. I'm not sure what it's all about. And as that one walks away, Laurie, you were wondering if that dark tail, the dark tip to the tail, serves a similar purpose to the white tip or the black tip on lions and leopards. And the answer is yes, to an extent. The tails in hyenas are particularly important in terms of their visual communication. We've seen it a lot, either the tail tucked down between the legs or raised in excitement, depending on what's happening. Sorry, Laurie, I'll be with you in a moment. I want to see if November responds to this one calling, as she has a couple of times now. This individual strikes me as a female, just by her size. And the call that she's making sounds like contact calls to cubs, but nothing's responded to her. Not sure. I don't know what this means. But yes, Laurie, the black on the tip of the tail does serve to highlight whatever message. Oh, one of the twins. Bye-bye, little twin. whatever message it was that the adults were trying to pass on. What the hyenas are trying to pass on. My brain's working overtime. I'm trying to figure out exactly what it is that female's doing. Can you hear that? Woo! This is so cute. June looking for a playmate. And I must actually be honest, the end result of all of that anal pasting can actually, even I can smell it. And usually a hyena den smells a little bit, but even I can now smell, it's a very musky, pungent odor. This has been interesting. I don't know what that one hyena's doing. I don't know why she's calling repeatedly. I don't know why she's anal pasting all around the den, or why she's interacting as often and responding to November's calls as she has been. It doesn't really make complete sense in my human mind as to what's going on. She's definitely not November's mother. It's not pretty. I think it's a female, just judging by size and then shape of the pseudo-penis from what I've seen. I'm uncertain as to what's been going on here. Now, the action has moved across to the other side, and I think it's going to quieten down for this morning. And I think at some point we're going to have to leave the hyena den, although I could quite happily stay here all day. I think it might be time for us to go. However, in order to do that, I'm going to have to start the vehicle, and I'm uncertain as to whether or not that's actually going to work. Nope. In which case, I will say goodbye to you for now, pass you back to James, and catch up with you later.
Ooh, did you smell that, everybody? Take a deep breath. Inhale. No, it doesn't smell like petrol fumes, Liam. There. Yeah. On this bushel, on this very bushel of Cissus cornifolia, there is the smell of buttered popcorn, which of course is the smell of leopard urine. There is absolutely nothing in any way, shape or form on this road that resembles a leopard track. I'm just going to take one reverse back. Just take a deep breath, everybody. Imagine you're standing at the queue at the movies if you haven't been out here. And what you will smell is something similar to what's coming off this bush now. We'll just have a quick listen to see if anything is shouting. There's a rattling testicular shouting there, but they shout at everything. Let me just do one little reverse back and see if I've missed something. You know, all you smell is Jigger's rather offensive bowels belching at you. Right, well, you did. Yeah. So there is a leopard there somewhere, or there was one at some stage. There are no tracks on the road here, though. Anyway, we keep trying. At least that's an indication that there are some leopards around. Very pretty morning. The birds have started to sing. Scrub robins, the long-billed crombecs. Again, plenty of hyena have run up and down this road, possibly chasing the leopards. Oops, here we go. Hang on. No, it's a small hyena. Smell the beautiful wild aniseed smell in the air. Otherwise, no more in the way of leopards. Just for those of you who are interested in following the sort of life of the lions of the area, apparently the Ngahuma Pride went back into the Kruger Park from Nkoro, I think 2 days ago. So they are around, but they're still trying to avoid this area. I have not heard about the Birmingham boys for the last week or so. So I think they must be in the south. They certainly were on Cheetah Plains for some time. Yes, Lisa W., I think you're absolutely right. We need to talk to Nkoro and tell them to send our lions back. Good point. So just driving very slowly up what we call Twin Dams Road. So there are not twin dams, there is one dust bowl. Stop in the dip here. Right, now this would be a good spot for room with the leopard to come. So I'm just going to sit here for a little while we chat to Eric in Virginia. Oh, there is a Franklin alarming. You hear that? Very cross. Eric in Virginia, you want to know if there are any local customs or local rituals that are done to try and entice the rains? Nothing, I think, specific in this area. There will be people who possibly do the odd sacrifice to try and placate the ancestors. Most of the local religions out here are based on sort of communing with the ancestors who are thought to have some influence over your life or the life of the earth. And so there may be some who have, I don't think there's anything specific, there's nothing obvious that we know about, but there is a tradition up further to the north and west of here, where Mojaji, the rain queen of the Pedi people, lives, and Mojaji is still, the rain queen is still a kind of local royalty. She still exists, and certainly in history it was her role to try and bring on the rains, and it was said that she was the only one who could call in the rains. But not being very particularly effective this year.
I thought Mojaji was a cycad.
A cycad, yes, named also a cycad, VM, but named for the Rain Queen. No further shouting of birds. All is at peace. Sacrosanct. You want to know about the small cats, the beautiful caracals and servals. You want to know when the last time we saw a serval was. When was the last time I saw a serval? I've only seen one serval here. I see their tracks quite often. Viam, when was the last time you saw one?
May? I don't know.
May. I saw one, I think, around July. Renty saw one around May as well. I think again after that on Arathusa. They're definitely around. Sacrosanct, but I mean really, if you see a serval, you're doing really well. Simply because they're very shy. And I mean, if you just look into the bush here, a serval being the size of a fairly large house cat is almost impossible to see. but they're around. Caracal, I don't think so much in this area, although I believe there was a caracal with kittens a few years ago that lived in a culvert on the main access road. But they're also around. It's a good word, that, Liam, don't you think? Culvert. So we're coming up to the spot now where I last picked you up, and we're just after I'd walked in there and found the hornbill's nest. Sorry, my communications are really disastrous this morning. And Jerry, you'll have to go again with that. Right, Jamie's got some stripy ponies. Let's go across to them. I'll keep trying in this area for the next little while. See you shortly.
It's amazing to think how many nicknames we've come up for zebra. Horses in pajamas, I think, is probably my favorite so far. Or itchy foal. And that stick is the perfect height for a cheek scratch. Very itchy. There's something very horse-like about that whole motion. Oh, getting right under the cheeks, between the cheeks, the lower jaw, behind the ear. Perfect. Little tail flapping like crazy. Only a couple of months old, still got fluff. Protected by the rest of the herd. Interestingly, you don't see oxpeckers on zebra nearly as often as you see them on other animals. You do see them. I'm not sure. From what I understand, they have a normal parasite tick load. Back foot keeps lifting. Still very itchy. Oh, there goes the back leg up again. I think almost in an involuntary response there to where it's scratching. That back foot lifts out of a reflex action to scratch behind the ear. Yes, we're talking about you. Morning. Still not quite done. Here we go. Moving on to the chest now. All done. And at this age, they almost look as though their stripes and their noses are brown. That doesn't look like the most appetizing piece of grass. It's got the fluorescence part of the grass. Oh! Looking for any kind of green shoots. And in the process has become quite separate from the rest of the herd. There's one individual with the foal, but the rest of them have moved off to the right. And that being said, adult zebras are particularly protective over foals this age, and were there any kind of predator that might attack them, the stallion would play a very, very vital role in its defense. And I've seen zebra fight fiercely to protect their youngsters. The whole herd will be involved. And interestingly, having just come from the hyena den, zebra also have quite a strong female role within the harem system. So although the stallion collects his mares as time goes on, and in this case he's done Impala's being silly and scattering everything. It's the male, which we can hear, chasing females despite the fact that it really is not mating season. Where was I before I was interrupted? Yes, so having come from spotted hyenas and their female dominance, the females in a zebra herd also play a very important role. They decide where the herd is going, they lead the herd, the rest follow, and the first mare that the male collects will be his favorite and his dominant, and she essentially makes the decisions. He follows behind in a protective backup kind of role, so he walks behind the rest of the herd. And interesting that the zebras know that the impala are not being serious. These are not alarm calls. It's just that the male's causing trouble. Little lambs sprinting across the road. And now contact calls from the various females who have been separated. Jen B, you looking at the foal, and you've suggested that it looks like it's already survived a clawed predator. You might have a good view of an injury or an old scar, possibly, that I might have missed. Distinctly possible, but as we've seen, it could also have been an injury inflicted by other zebras. They're not gentle with each other, particularly females with foals that are not their own. They do occasionally lash out if the foal gets confused. We've seen it with a couple of different animals, like with that elephant that kicked the calf a couple of days ago. Little zebra watching the shenanigans of the impalas with great curiosity. So somewhere, I assume what you've spotted, Jen, is an injury that's healed on this little guy. And what happens with zebra very often is when they are injured, it affects their stripe patterns. I'm laughing because I'm just watching the impala dash backwards and forwards, and the zebra's reaction to it, this foal's reaction to it. Just watching them dash backwards and forwards. There they go again. Very curious as to what's going on. And they're coming back. Here they come. Bouncing across the road. There's nothing chasing. Whoa. Now I've spooked the zebra. It's chaos. The impala are causing chaos. And it could be once the baby's impala startle, nobody quite knows when it's safe to stop. So they dash about like mad things. Here they come again. Bounce, 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 bounce. And that high, fast, bouncing stride that they're doing is to demonstrate how physically fit and strong they are. I think we're done. No, we're not. We're not. Here we go again. Whee! And the female's joining in. I don't think they quite know whether or not they're safe to stop running. I don't think they're playing. Although there could be an aspect of that to it as well. Have we stopped yet? Are we calm? I think we're calm. We appear to be calm. Little foal responding with complete dignity. Where was I? Oh, Jen, we were looking for the injury that you spotted. Must be on the other side. I can't see it from this side. Might be on its left side. But when zebras' injuries that are deep, that are deeper than skin deep, heal, they often get crisscrossed striped patterns and slightly out of alignment. It always makes them very easily identifiable. I kind of see what you mean if you're talking about around the thigh. That looks like a possible scar. In areas on the back right. The stripes are out of alignment. Thank you, Tebs. Perfect. That could be an old injury. That's something that's healed up. This zoom is incredible. And you can see how fluffy and tatty his little foal is with this tight shot. Along with those incredibly long eyelashes. We've discussed at length the purpose of the zebra stripes. And Natalin, you said that you were watching a video on zebra stripes. And excuse me if I squinted you straight into the sun. But that the presenter demonstrated, or that the documentary demonstrated how in the heat, the stripes almost create a mirage that means the zebra disappears. And we've spoken a lot about the fact that no one really knows why zebras have stripes, and that's an interesting possibility. It ties in with the heat distribution that a lot of people have considered as a viable theory. So the black stripes heat up very fast, which I suppose in turn would create that shimmer, or if it's a shimmer coming off the ground, it would also blur the shapes of the zebra. We do know that they work magically as camouflage, and that might just be one extra aspect of it. Zebra stripes are fascinating. Nobody knows exactly what it is or why it is that they've evolved to be that way. If it were a magic camouflage mechanism, why are they the only creatures that have it? But they're not really, because kudu also have stripes, nyala have stripes, as a way of disrupting the vision of predators. Distinct advantage to it. Still watching the goings on. Still trying to work out where this little foal's mother is. She might have moved off with the rest of the zebra to the right. At this point, the little foal is showing plenty of independence. There's the herd in that direction. Also watching the goings-on of the impala in between grazing. And if we look at the ones on the right, that sort of collection of zebra there, you can see how the stripes make it difficult to distinguish one from another, even at the distances that they are from each other. So it definitely works. They blend into a blur of stripes. Oh, Vicky, I mentioned that injury could have come from another zebra, and you were wondering why zebras kill their foals, if they do. There's a couple of different aspects to zebra personalities. In this case, what I meant was it might have been a female that might have kicked out or lashed out at the foal, not really intending to kill it, but just to get it away from her if it had mistaken her for its mother, which does occasionally happen when they're very young. That being said, there is a vicious side to zebra behavior. You often often see zebra without tails, and a lot of people think that's from a narrow escape from a predator. 90% of the time it's not. It's come from one of the other females in the herd biting. And zebra have incredibly powerful jaw muscles and very sharp incisors. And those hooves can do damage, and they are aggressive creatures. Now, I know that WildEarth, close to when I first started working here, showed a very, very sad and very difficult scene for a lot of people, where a foal was targeted by a group of stallions. And we still, to this day, don't know why they killed that foal, and they did eventually end up killing it. They broke its leg and terrorized it for a considerable period of time. We don't know why that happened. We think it's to do with the stallions fighting each other, and then at that point the testosterone levels overwhelmed them and they started to take the aggression out on the foal. Probably it was a bachelor herd of stallions that then encountered another herd, maybe got involved in the fight with that herd's dominant stallion, and then the foal got in the way, but it turned into the stallions turning on the foal. Zebras do have quite an aggressive aspect to their personality. They will chase predators, they will attempt to protect and guard their foals, but occasionally it does take quite a dark turn. And when a mare or a filly first joins a herd, so when the stallion of that herd brings her through, having won a fight with another stallion, and when he brings her into his herd, the other females tend to be very unfriendly in the beginning. And quite often what they'll do is they will kick and they will bite that young female to the point that she will try to leave, at which point the stallion steps in and brings her back. So she spends the first few months of her life with that herd being constantly on the outskirts and bullied by the rest of the females. It takes them a while to accept her, and it's only really because the stallion is constantly herding her back towards them that she actually stays with them. And eventually what will happen is the rest of the females will accept her, and she'll join in as they walk in rank with the first female going ahead. She will then join in at the back in front of the stallion. And they're fascinating in that respect. They've got a seriously aggressive side to their personality, and I don't think it's entirely fully understood why they sometimes respond in the way they do. I know that we were all, as presenters, we discussed the zebra incident at length after it occurred, where that young foal was killed. That looks to me like the stallion with thin stripe. As usual, walking quite far behind the rest of the herd. Within the Sabi Sands, this is the only species of zebra that you are likely to see. So Paige, you were wondering how many different types we get. In the Sabi Sands, just the one, and it's these guys here. They're plain zebra. Their stripes extend all the way down to their ankles and around down their stomach. And then they've also got sort of shadow stripes in between the big black stripes around their rear ends and around their backs. We also, within South Africa, we get the endangered Cape Mountain zebra, which is a beautiful zebra, roughly the same size. I'll stay exactly where we are. Roughly the same size as these plain zebra, but with stripes that don't extend all the way down the legs and not necessarily underneath the stomach. It's also a species known as the Grevy's zebra. But the only species that we will get here is the Plains zebra. I knew them as the Burchell zebra when I was a child, but the name has since changed to Plains zebra. And I think that pretty much spells the end of our zebra sighting. The others have moved off. Let's go to James, see what he's been up to, and I'll be back with you later.
Okay, everybody, we've come into a different area around Treehouse Dam now, hoping to pick up on something else. We didn't find one more Karula track. I did find one from where she'd been this early this morning, the ones earlier than when Steph saw them. And, as Brent says, she's a spirit leopard. That she's not to be found. She simply won't be. So we'll go back around towards the house where they were earlier at some stage today. But I think for the moment we should cut our losses and try and find something else. So the plan at the moment is to go and check the water down here at Treehouse Dam, and then we're going to move off towards Arathusa. We'll just get an update on the radio there to find out if anything's been found. Arathusa has been very quiet of late. Lots of action just again to the north and south and east of them. In Hoffman's, Shadow was on a kill. They had the dogs on Simbambili. So lots going on around the area. Like I said, I think you'll find that, as this drought progresses, the animals will move towards the water, which is, there's lots of water on Buffelshoek, so I think that's what's happening there. They found that the Talamati pride of lions, who I don't think we've actually seen yet, they found them, I think, every day around one of those dams for the last almost 10 days. And that's simply because the water is so concentrated, why would they go anywhere else? They know that animals are going to have to come and drink, so they just lurk around the water, wait for something of appropriate size to come and have a drink, and then they eat it. And eventually what's going to happen though is, because the water is concentrated there and not so much here, the grazing value of the land around that water is going to reduce, and the animals are going to have to come and move further and further towards water, from the water to their grazing lands. And I suspect the Djuma will become a hub of activity as the drought progresses, simply because we don't have a lot of water here, and therefore the grazing value of this land and the browse is going to be that much higher than it is anywhere else. Nothing going on at this little dust bowl. A couple of Franklins. Hello Edward, you're on Twitter. You say, is it true that the drought is actually very helpful? I wouldn't describe it as very helpful. I think it's certainly, I'm of the school of thought that it is neither negative nor positive. It's just part of the endless cycle that has been going on in this area for millennia. So the ecology, the earth here will change. Trees will change, the vegetation will change, it will adapt, and it will be fine. Sometimes that's very difficult for us to accept, especially, our human lifespans are obviously very short in comparison with the sort of cycles of ecology that go on here, the dynamic equilibrium that moves through an area like this. And so for us to accept that things will change within our lifetime, and perhaps in 2 generations they'll look like they do again here, is almost impossible. So it's so difficult for us, with our instinct to try and control and manipulate, to accept the fact that, let's say I'm a landowner here, to accept the fact that it's going to be different from, say I came into the area when I was 10 with my family. It's so hard to accept that it might look totally different when I die. It's so hard to not try and maintain and manipulate and say, well, this is what it should look like, this is what it could look like, without saying, you know what, I'm sure the earth can look after itself. It's done it for goodness knows how long. It's almost impossible for us humans to be able to do that. So we get into the cycle of water. Should we provide water or should we not? Should we clear bush? Should we not? Should we provide salt licks? Should we not? And I used to be of the opinion that we should heavily manage an area like this. I'm coming more around to the thought that we should just let the earth kind of deal with it herself. And if this place looks like a desert in 40 years' time, by the time I shake off my mortal coil, well, that's okay. Because another 200 years from then, it's going to look different. question from Smiles for Rates. Smiles for someone. You say you haven't seen any stick insects this year. Yeah, I've seen a few, but as it's dried, as soon as we had that first rain, that initial flush in the beginning of September, there's another little bit in October. I think at the beginning of November we had a bit of a sprinkle. There were immediately a great explosion of insects, and around Big Cat Week we had wonderful insects all over the place, jewel beetles and fruit chaffers as the flowers came out, and dung beetles flying all over the place, grasshoppers, crickets singing at night. And then as it's dried out, so the number of insects has decreased again. And while we certainly had lots of stick insects and that sort of thing around that time, as it's dried, so the insects have kind of disappeared again. Except the flies. There have been many flies, many sweat flies in the afternoons which surround us, supping on our sweat. It's deeply unpleasant. Liam and I were on a walk 2 days ago, or 3 days ago, and we were set upon, I think we must have walked through a swarm, but decided we were definitely a very good option to stay with for the rest of the walk. Right, we've come onto the deep southern boundary. Catfish, you are obviously watching the Djuma Dam cam. You can see that where Peter is sitting, the water is starting to sort of move out or to evaporate, and you say, you've obviously looked at the weather report for the area for the next little while. You say with the temperatures coming up and without any pumping, could Peter die? No, I don't think in the next few days. If he doesn't find water, yes, perhaps. I'm not sure what the plan is with pumping that pan. I know that having him there is not necessarily a positive thing for any of the other animals, because he fouls the water. He chases off a few of the other animals. So while he might be very happy in that pan, I'm not sure that it's particularly beneficial for anyone else. I'm not sure what the plan is for pumping that pan. I think it probably will be pumped again fairly soon. But even if it wasn't in the next few days, we've got 2 or 3 days of real heat coming up. I don't think that would kill him, no. I mean, he might have to just suck it up like the rest of the hippos and head towards the Sand River. I think that's what he would have done had he not come across this area with those sort of pumped pans. So we're heading now in a due westerly direction towards Aratuza. We'll see if we can't get an update there. Aratuza, we were talking about Majaji, the rain queen, earlier, and she was the queen and still is the queen of the Pedi people. And Aratuza, of course, is a Pedi word meaning to help. Utusa. So Aratusa, I think it means to kind of let us help. You can see out towards the Drakensberg Mountains, you might be able to see just a bit of kind of purple underneath the blue. That's the mountains there. But everything is very blue and very clear and very cloudless. And as I said yesterday, absolutely perfect if you happen to be on a beach holiday. Not quite so much if you're waiting for rain in the wilderness of the Lowveld. Jose in Virginia, good morning to you. You want to know about swarms of birds that when they're migrating. Jose, I think not really swarms of birds. We certainly do get flocks of migrating birds that come in and out. There are tens of species that come in and out of here depending on the time of the year. I've just seen a bird that is not one of those. The grey-headed sparrow, Liam. Can you see him there?
Where am I looking?
On the ground.
Oh, yeah, okay.
So there is a grey-headed sparrow. They are not migratory. One of the first birds you hear in the morning. Chip, 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 chip. Common bird. You can hear how silent it is. Just the woodland kingfishers and a breeze blowing from the southeast. No cuckoos calling anymore. No Diedrich's cuckoos going, which would be so typical of this time of the year. And there's a drongo there, Viam, in the tree that's just landed. So, Jose, just to quickly finish off the discussion to you, no swarms. The only swarm of birds that might come through an area like this would be a red-billed quillia. Now, they're not migratory, they're more nomadic, and just the habitat's not quite right for them here. Anyway, Jamie apparently has got a baby giraffe. Let's go across to her, enjoy that, and I will see you, hopefully, with a positive update from Aratuza.
Disappearing into the bushes, as it clearly demonstrates the joys of wild and live filming. And sometimes the animals just don't want to cooperate. There's quite a young giraffe that was moving ahead of us there. This vegetation is incredibly dense, and if I try and follow it off-road, she is going to keep moving ahead of us and disappear. I'm not entirely sure where her mother is. Oh, here her mother is. Nice view. It's probably as good as it's going to get. And she keeps, nope, there she goes, and she's walking off. Oh, someone gave her a fright. She jumped over a log. You may actually have to take my word for it. Yep. And sacrosanct, you are absolutely right. Giraffe are like zebra. They look so peaceful until they start to bite and kick. I'll try and stop here. It's actually the three from yesterday morning that we had on bushwalk. It's a big dark male and a female and her small calf. Not the world's clearest view, but yes, giraffe can be as effective in terms of defending themselves as zebra can be, if not more so. And we spoke about their ability to kick and to swing their necks and use their heads as battering rams. There you go. Put the two together, sacrosanct. A very peaceful scene. And useful if you're zebra to have friends in high places to keep an eye on what's going on around you. Although giraffe tend not to alarm call. They simply stare in the direction of the threat. But animals are so attuned to each other's behavior that they will be completely aware. As soon as one looks up with ears perked, the rest of them do as well. It's the male on the right and the female on the left, in case you can't really get a clear view. You can actually see the enormous size difference there. He is much, much bigger than she is. And he's been quite persistent, because yesterday morning he was trying to court this female as well. And at the time I said there wasn't a chance of him having a mating opportunity with her, because I wouldn't have expected a mother with such a young calf to come into estrus again so soon. But But he obviously thinks he does stand a chance, because this is now the second day running that we've seen them together, and he is courting her. That constant attendance that male giraffe demonstrates. So essentially every time she moves, he follows right up close, and throughout the entire extended courtship period, he's going to try and mount her several times without actually being successful. I'm just going to reach up for a second. Bear with me a moment. Sorry. I know that might be quite disturbing, but I was just looking at the spider web that has wrapped itself around the camera. Sorry guys, there we go. Got it. It's one of the joys of summer. Continually sort of surrounded in your peripheral vision by shiny spider webs. I've got some attached to my cap at the moment, and every now and again it catches the sun perfectly. You get very used to it. I mean, I'm covered in them, but you get so used to that tickly feeling that you actually don't even bother with it anymore. You cannot spend all of your time and energy trying to pull them off. And unfortunately we can't get the clearest view, so I think I'm going to carry on. If I do try and follow these animals, they're just going to move off, and there's very little purpose to it. But what I would have liked to have shown you is what Jose was asking a question about. So Jose, you were wondering what the use for the horns are on the giraffe's head. Just a small interesting aspect of terminology. In giraffe, the horns are actually known as ossicones because they're not completely true horns. Unlike, just listening to the birds, they're making a terrible racket. You see if there's any kind of aerial predator. So the reason they're called ossicones and not horns, just as an aside before I answer your question, is because they are born with them. Baby giraffe are born with those ossicone present, unlike antelope and various other creatures with horns that actually grow them from a growth plate after they're born. So our little baby impala very soon are going to start sprouting little tiny horns that are going to pop up. But they're known as ossicones, and they're born with them flat and soft cartilage, and they within a few days of birth, those ossicones lift up and then the giraffe then starts to lay down bone to cement them. Now in males, they're a very clear indicator that you are looking at a male giraffe. They are much, much thicker than the females, and they are bald on top. And the reason behind that is they rub the fur off the top of them. So when giraffe compete for access to a female in estrus, they do what's known as necking, which is to swing their heads at high speed. And you can imagine with those big muscular necks, they can do the momentum and the force behind that swing is incredible. They swing across and they hit each other on the sides and on the legs as a way of fighting. And those horns are an extra weapon for them to have. Now females are capable of doing that, but they really don't do it nearly as often. So the ossicones are much further reduced. They're thin and they're not really as sturdy because they don't use them generally for fighting, and their defense mechanism is far more directed towards kicking. Interestingly, there's a lot of theories about why giraffes have long necks. Now, of course, everybody thinks immediately, because it's access to food. But it's not actually. Most of the scientists are now agreeing that those long necks, and it was similar to what they've discovered in dinosaurs, they think evolved as a strategy for males to fight each other. So the longer the neck, the more momentum you get at the end of that swing, and the more effective you are at fighting off another male. So they think that the long necks in giraffe is actually a reproductive strategy rather than better access to different food sources. Just an interesting aside. Not sure what you all think of that. You can always, of course, debate it and disagree and let me know. Now, let's see what James is up to, and I'll continue to look for wonderful and magical things to show you.
There, everybody, is a little tortoise. And we have come to Arathusa, got an update on the radio. The update on the radio was that there was one tortoise on the whole of Arathusa, and we have managed to find it. There he is, a little leopard tortoise. As you can see, highly mobile, definitely in the process of running away from something. I am, of course, being completely facetious. It really is amazing the ponderous nature in which they walk, which of course is precisely how to live out here best, I think. Can't really be in a rush. But I tell you what, with this kind of, if you watch a leopard tortoise like this for too long, with the sun shining on your back, the temptation to close one's eyes and go to sleep for a very lengthy period will become overwhelming. So I don't think we'll stay here for too long. And as many of you will know, this is one of two tortoise species that we find here. This is the leopard tortoise. The other one is called the Spix hinged tortoise. And they have a hinged carapace. The carapace is the top part of the shell, the plastron on the underside, and they've got a little hinge at the back of the carapace. That's the Spix hinged tortoise. And so many of these tortoises or animals out here were named after naturalists, or what are euphemistically called naturalists these days. And Mr. Speke, I think, was quite a good naturalist. But I was watching the Wahlberg's Eagle earlier today, thinking about Mr. Wahlberg, who I initially knew as a Swedish naturalist. A Swedish murderer of elephants would probably be a far more accurate reflection of Mr. Wahlberg. And he was, in fact, eventually bitten by the bug that is karma in Botswana, after he'd killed any number of elephants to sell their ivory and collected any number of species for sending back to natural history museums. He was eventually flattened by an elephant in Botswana. That's called karma, Viam. Karma. Lovely little leopard tortoise and a beautiful view down over the view. Lovely subject, this, Blair. You're in British Columbia, and you say that you've noticed that males almost always play no role in parental upbringing. Now, this is true, and it's an interesting one because it's a discussion that comes up so often, and I think it's a discussion that comes up so often because it's such an important part of human psychology, and one of the major things that human beings look for in men is a kind of a quality that we aspire to and that we want from men is their ability to support, look after, and nurture a family. And we look for that kind of connection in the mammals around us. And more often than not, Blair, you're absolutely correct, males play no part, and they play the part of the rogue. Certainly if we know if we're men to behave like half of the mammals out here, they'd definitely be considered rogues, and be thoroughly chastised by society. Blair, there are plenty of examples, however, of males, not necessarily mammals, that play active and very important roles in parenting. They mostly come from the bird world. The monogamy is far more popular amongst the birds than it is amongst the mammals, as is parental or fatherly paternal care. So lots and lots of birds, the males, in fact, I'd say more birds than not, the males play a crucial part in child rearing. They look after the youngsters, they look after the female while she's sitting on the eggs quite often. In the case of the hornbill, the female is totally helpless when she's incubating her eggs. She's naked, she's got no feathers on her body at all. Without the male, she would surely die. So yes, in the birds, definitely very noble and fine-charactered men. The mammals, not so much. So we look at let's look at impala. impala spend a great deal of time learning or trying to get a harem full of mates. Once they've impregnated the females, that's the last they have to do with the youngsters. Same goes for leopards. Leopards will play no role in parental care. Lions will play no role in parental care, and indeed lions, I suppose lions, you might say the males play a little bit of a role in that they do protect the pride territory, which in turn protects the youngsters, but they don't actually play any role, and they'll just as soon as steal food from their cubs as they will allow them to eat at a kill. I suppose a notable exception would be wild dogs, which are play a very important role. The males play a very important role, both the alpha male and the subordinates, who are often related to the cubs in a feeding. So wild dogs would be different. Mongoose would be the same, dwarf mongooses. I suppose, and also the males play a role in parenting. Zebras, although they have a harem structure, so they'll zebra stallion and his many wives, 3 or 4 wives. His role is, I suppose, quite important it's certainly a protective role within what we call a kinship group. So zebra, yes, they might play a parental role, but the vast majority of male mammals play no role in child rearing and looking after the kids. And that's just the way it is. And here's another lovely one from X-Ranger about seahorse males. They do a very good job of looking after babies. Now, a seahorse male can be likened to a African jacana male, where I believe a seahorse male carries the babies or carries the eggs once they've been produced by the female. Now, in any species where there are eggs produced, where there isn't an encumbrance or a need for the female to carry babies to term, so to be pregnant and to carry them in utero, then the males tend to play a lot more active a role. And it's no surprise that the birds do the same. And it's also possible for the female to take more than one lover, if you like. Whereas if you're there's some giraffe up ahead. Whereas if you're a mammal and you're the female, you have to carry the baby to term, which means that there's no real point in you being a philanderer. Whereas if you're a female African jacana, you can philander away at will, because you can lay your eggs and then you put one male on that egg to look after, and you can philander around a bit and lay another egg, and you can put another male on that one, and that's what they do. It's a brilliant arrangement for her. She gets to leave lots of offspring, and the males sit on top of the eggs and incubate them for her, which of course in the mammal world is totally impossible. Lovely example. Thank you, X-Ranger. Let's have a look at these giraffes. Now, Italian on YouTube, you want to know this is an airport. This is indeed the Arathusa International Airport, where the giraffes are hoping to go on an extended holiday to more moist climes. I think they're probably going to go to the Congo, possibly. Yeah, Congo is probably a good wet place to be at this time of the year. Metallian, it is an airstrip. It's just an airstrip for Arathusa Lodge, and some of the surrounding lodges will also use it. And you could fly in a private plane, or you can get a plane through one of the commercial airlines in South Africa and fly in here. Just small planes, so nothing large can land here. I think the biggest would be something like a Citation, which is a private jet. So the heat is really starting to build now. It really is amazing that at this early stage of the day, it's already got so hot. Started off so nice and cool, and now it's really hot. And that giraffe, well, it doesn't seem to be feeling the heat too badly, but it will no doubt head into the shade at some stage. And here's another example of a mammal that won't play any part in where the male will not play any part in parental care. These are 2 females. The males will mate, and then they disappear, and they go off and eat. Elephants as well, who we often like to think of as being quite human, and they have so many human characteristics. The bulls play no role in calf raising. They do play a very important role, of course, in mentoring the young bulls. So I suppose that might be considered parental care. It's interesting, in Stone Age societies, if we look at our human ancestors, that was pretty much how it went. The males, or the men in a Stone Age village, or prehistoric village would, the chief might have one or two wives, and he would play very little role other than a protective one for the young kids. He would then take over as a mentor when the boys reached puberty, or when they got to the age where they could do kind of manly duties within the village, like hunt or build or that sort of thing. So the advent of the situation where men in human society are a kind of constant support from infancy, I guess that's fairly recent, and I think it's it's an urban phenomenon and a very modern Western phenomenon almost. Certainly in some of the rural villages out here, still men do play a role, but it's not a particularly active role in the raising of the infants, and often that's done by the collective in the village, the collective of women. And it's an interesting one, because I think a lot of people, when they hear that, think, oh, that's very backward, and I don't believe that it is. What it does is the women in these villages have an incredible support structure of nurturing and of experience, where there's a constant input from grandmothers and other women who've raised children, which I think must make it much easier. And I watched my brother and his wife, absolutely they get support from the grandparents, but when the grandparents aren't there, they're into the situation where the two of them, who have no experience of child rearing at all, other than what they remember of themselves, are faced with this incredible mewling creature that's incredibly demanding, difficult to look after, and it must be so much more difficult, I think, without that kind of nurturing support that you get in villages, where there's a whole group of women that have raised children, and they can take the baby when you get exhausted. They can look after the baby. Men can kind of commiserate with each other. I think it's there's a lot to be said for that kind of society. Anyway, that's got nothing to do with giraffe. Let's carry on. They've gone now south of where we're allowed to go. Yesterday we had a wonderful discussion about laws in Atlanta, and one of the laws in Atlanta, of course, is that you may not, there's a giraffe cow, you may not tether your giraffe to a lamp post in Atlanta. And Safari Dean says maybe they're waiting for a plane to Atlanta. Well, if you do go giraffe, make sure you don't find yourself tethered to a lamppost. You could be arrested. That apparently is a genuine law in Atlanta, that you can be fined for tethering your giraffe to a lamppost. You must park your giraffe in a designated parking area, otherwise, well, you can get into trouble. You will fall foul of the law. Monkey Man, a good point. What would we do if there was a giraffe on the airstrip when a plane came into land? Monkey Man, there are two things that happen. First of all, what's supposed to happen is that when the plane is coming in, it will radio the lodge, and when it's 10 minutes out, a vehicle will come to the airstrip and make sure that it is clear of animals. So if you find a giraffe on it, you clap your hands and chase it away. If you find an elephant, you radio the lodge so that they can warn the plane. But the plane will also do a flyover. They don't just come in from the back end and not land, at least, you know, come in and land blind. They will often, unless they get the all clear, they will often do a flyover and check that there's nothing here. And sometimes if there is something, I mean, in places like Botswana where you know, the planes landing all the time, there are always animals on the airstrip, especially when it's difficult for them, you know, there's good grazing there and there's thick bush on either side. What they'll do is they'll buzz the airstrip, so they'll fly low down over the airstrip, chase the animals off, go up again, come around and then land. There are very, very stringent safety protocols in place because, yeah, you don't want to be hitting an animal in an aeroplane. I actually never heard of it happening, but I'm sure it has once or twice. Lewis, you're worried about wondering about the giraffe in the drought, and will their food source be affected as the drought progresses? Will the food sort of be reached higher and higher up? Yes, I suppose they would, Lewis. They're browsers, so I think they're going to be affected after the grazers, for example. Because, of course, trees have taproot systems, they can reach the water where the grasses can't. So browsers will be affected later than will the grazers. And so I think the giraffe are okay for now. Giraffe, of course, can live in semi-desert areas. They're not very water dependent at all, and they can go for days without drinking. So giraffe, I think of many of the species out here, will be one of the last affected by a severe drought. This must be a very strange conversation to be having with people who are in, say, North America, where it's cold, it's probably quite snowy and wet. Certainly in the UK, I know it's been pretty wet, and here it's just so incongruous. I mean, for us to be sitting in this kind of dryness is quite something. And there's another Ziziphus tree being eaten. And browsers, yes, I mean, you say the sun looks hot. It does look hot, and it looks hot because the light is now harsh. It's gone from that very pleasant kind of golden yellow light, and it's kind of very quickly turned into quite a white, burnt-out, harsh light. And if Wiem just pans up to the sky from where he is there, or tilts up to the sky, you don't pan to the sky, do you, Wiem?
Well done, James.
Thank you so much. Yes, well, you know, do what I can. You can see how the sky is actually almost looks a bit bleached, and that's exactly what happens when the sun comes up and there's no cloud in the sky. It will go that kind of bleached summer color. And I mean, I look back at the camera now, and I'm supposed to, as a professional presenter, be able to look at you like this despite the sun shining in my eyes, but I'm afraid it's simply too bright. Right, on we go. Bye, giraffes. Good luck with the day. Enjoy. Don't fly to Atlanta. If you do, make sure you know where to park. There's a little pan up ahead here on the airstrip, so we'll have a look there and see what's there. I did see some hardy-dar ibis flying towards it. And then I'm just going to ask Wiem again to Wiem, while we're driving, if you could pan across to the left, and you can see there. Stop right here. You can see there a stony koppie, or a rocky outcrop. You see that, Wimpy? That rocky outcrop I've spent many an afternoon on. It's called Shimpalambala koppie, and it's on Londolozi Game Reserve. But what I wanted you to see was not necessarily my nostalgia, but just I mean, it's actually a really pretty view, and you can see the Lowveld stretching off there into the hazy distance. And it's a wonderful view of the kind of topography we have here. There's that kind of rocky outcrop there, and that's one of the only ones you get. Otherwise, this ancient landscape is just gentle, undulating topography, not much in the way of hills at all. And that's just a sign of how old it is and how weathered most of the granite. It's largely granite, this area. It's just a sign of how old it is. I'm enjoying the breeze coming out of the southeast. I'd enjoy it more if it was bringing a giant storm with it. Jason on YouTube, an unusual request. You say I should get to work and find you a black mamba. I'd love to find you a black mamba, actually. That would be fascinating to see. I've seen one great black mamba. Unfortunately, we didn't watch it live because at the time, I think it was during Big Cat Week, and there was a leopard doing something exciting. And then Scott had an incredible view of a black mamba the other day. That was Fluvia. And I mean, it got to within what, 2 meters of the car? Wow. Yeah. And then went into a termite mound. Jason, if I see a black mamba, I shall be sure to tell you immediately. There's the control room and customs building. Terminal building, sorry. That's where the giraffe will clear customs before they fly out to it on their Atlanta holiday. Oh, and this pan has gone dry. I'm pretty sure it's a pumped pan, so I'm not sure why it's been allowed to go dry, but it's absolutely fine that it is. Much going to come and drink here, and there was a young bull like Peter who lived in this pan. Clearly, if he lived here, he'd be a less than semi-aquatic animal. A little bit of mud in there. Matt in New York, a very nice question from you. I'm going to stop here. VMP, there's a lilac-breasted roller on this, very close to the ground there. You see him? Lovely picture of a lilac-breasted roller there. Don't want to go any closer because I think he'll fly away. Matt, you want to know what kind of vehicles these are, Matt, and whether they're specifically designed for the bush. I suppose you could say that they're standard issue Land Rover Defenders, though. It's a 90, so it's a short wheelbase Land Rover. And with the Land Rover, when they're sold, they've got a roof on them. With the Landy, you can just bolt the roof off, and then you get basically what we're sitting in now. It's not modified in any other way, other than, I mean, we've got bits and pieces that have been added to it for the filming. But in terms of its drivetrain and its engine and anything like that, it's completely standard. Sorry, I can't even see whether the camera's on me anymore because the glare on the monitor is so strong. So yeah, it's a standard issue Land Rover. It's got the BMW straight 6 2.8 in case you were interested. It's quite an old engine, and certainly I wouldn't say it's without its foibles. And the reason we use the old engines is because you can sort of fix them in the bush. Even this one's a bit complicated, and I mean, it's how old is it now? It was almost 20 years old, these engines, and you can't really fix them in the bush without a computer. And so the more basic the engine that we can get out here, the better, because obviously it's very difficult to take your car in to any kind of service station or garage. The other reason we use this engine is it's quiet. It's a nice petrol engine. You can get more modern diesels, but the diesels are just a little bit too noisy for the cameras. But otherwise, it's completely standard. There's no difference in its off-road ability. It's brilliant off-road. It's a great off-road car. They always have been great off-road cars. It's light. It's made of aluminium. Janet, you say that you want to know how many consecutive drives I've done now without a break, and you're saying, very kindly complimenting me and saying that I'm remaining impressively present. Janet, I think I'm on about drive number 7,586. Feels like I've been driving for about 7 years, but no, I think it's only been about 2 weeks or so that I've been going flat out. I'm going on leave on 3 days' time, on Saturday, so that will be quite nice. Janet, it's, while yes, I have been taking quite a long session, it really is quite the most rewarding job I've ever had. So it's not that as irksome as it might seem, and I hope that is coming across. Right, let's go across to Jamie. She's got a buffalo, and I'll see you in a little while.
The pattern of my last hour or so appears to be animals walking away from the camera. And I wanted to show you this buffalo because we spoke about that zebra having had a narrow, or possibility of that zebra foal having had a narrow escape. And I think something similar has happened to this gentleman. It's clearest on his right side, but it looks as though he's covered in injuries. I don't know whether it's come from another buffalo or whether or not it comes from a lucky escape from lions. He doesn't appear to have the usual scratch marks on his back. That's quite often a good indicator of an attack by lions. It's mostly on his right side, which of course he's now going to be obtuse about. But he does have an injury on his back as well. Makes me wonder. I think he might have had an escape. Unlikely that another buffalo would have managed to get a horn right up in the center of his back. Possible, of course. But really, those are the only two creatures that can do serious damage to a big buffalo bull of this size. I don't think he's going to be very obliging, though. He's definitely also got a degree of mange or fungal infection around his skin. He's balding against his stomach. He's also in not peak condition. Hip bones are starting to show. And he's moving with a certain tentativeness. Come on, boy. You're not going to be very cooperative. But I think most likely is that he's had a lucky escape, possibly even come up from around the Chitwa area, which is to the south of our boundary, which is where the Birmingham boys have been spending a lot of their time. I don't really want to try and follow him. He'll just move off away from us, and we won't have much in the way of luck in terms of seeing and being able to show you exactly what it is I mean. He's on his own as well, as far as I can tell. I haven't seen any other buffalo around him. If I seem slightly distracted, it's because one of the assassin bugs is attempting to make its way onto my leg, and I'm not terribly keen on the whole idea. So bear with me one moment as I attempt to redirect its attentions to not on me, but in a way that doesn't stress it out and cause it to secrete that rather unpleasant acid that they do secrete. Have a look at the buffalo, and I'm going to occupy myself currently with, here we go, thank you, can you climb on there? There we go, thanks very much, you may go. Those bright colors, the yellow and the black, currently sitting on James's water bottle. Something to be kept an eye out for and not trifled with. If you ever find yourself in the African bush and you find yourself with one of those on you, buddy, almost, good try. Don't ever sweep them off. Don't stress them out. And certainly don't try and smack them. You will regret it severely. They essentially secrete something with a very powerful acidic effect. they spray on you, which then causes blisters to pop up, and when those blisters pop, more blisters pop up. And poor old Eugene fell victim to one of these guys. Hey, that's very cool. Why are you trying to eat James's water bottle? Using its mandibles. I think it's been confused by the color and the texture of the rubber grip around James's water bottle, and is now attempting to attack it savagely with its mandibles. Look at that, you can see them working. That is so cool. Wow, that is so strong. That rubber grip is not to be scoffed at when you consider the size of this bug. Look at it. Look at those incredible antennae, bright yellow. Please don't spray in my direction. Please don't spray. Bye. No. That almost. Whoops. Oh. Still on the vehicle. There he goes. Bye-bye. I would be lying if I said that was not a welcome relief. I prefer to have them. They're beautiful. That was awesome to look at like that. But that's about as close as I want to be. Twin spot brown beetles and assassin beetles. Things with bright yellow or bright red spots on them. Creatures to be avoided if at all possible. And don't panic if one lands on you, because you will find yourself in an uncomfortable position. I have a friend who had a very, very unfortunate encounter with one in a very uncomfortable place. And it was a long time before he could sit comfortably and straight up. Oh, that was awesome. And so interesting to see the way it targeted James's water bottle. Now, James carries a mixture of salt water in his bottle that he gargles with, and I think that it also formed a little bit of a crust. It's also leaked all over the vehicle as an interesting aside, but that's different. There's a lot of crystallized salt all around me. Might have been something that attracted it, but I think also the color and the shape maybe imitated some kind of beetle or maybe a flower, I'm not sure. But it was really interesting to watch as the beetle attacked James's water bottle. And speaking of James and his water bottle, I wonder if he's feeling the absence of. Let's pop across the dam and find out.
As Jerry said, an enormous collection of heartbeats here at the Arethusa Dam. Lots and lots of impala, more than 100, I think. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, yeah, roughly about 100 impala here, 2 waterbuck, and a number of hippopotami sitting in the water. I'm still trying to find a little Lily, a small hippopotamus. I wonder if she and her mother haven't absconded down to the Sand River to fairer climes. You can hear the little impala babies calling. Bleh, bleh. Here, look here, Vim. There's one there on its own calling its mother. See there?
Walking down.
Yeah, it's going wow, wow. That's it. Wow. Dear. The mothers make that the growl, the kind of blah, blah, and the babies make that wow. Shame. Where's your mummy? How on earth the mothers recognize their babies and vice versa? Because you cannot tell the difference between 2 impala. They're not like buffalo, which are obviously different looking. Well, that baby certainly has lost his mum. It's like being at the mall. There we go. No. Still looking. Are you my mother? No, you're a father. Well, not yet. VM said, he said, do you think this is more than one herd? And I said, well, I think they're pretty loose agglomerations, you know. I don't think they're necessarily particularly fixed arrangements in these herds. But if they were two big herds that came down here and the baby got separated from its mother, it's difficult for it to find it again. Come on, one of you females, help this little one. Here we go. Yay. No. Seems to be... No. No. Still on its own there. Anyway. Maybe it will find its mother. Maybe it won't. So, it just shows you here, first of all, how many impala there are around. Secondly, it shows you that impala are going to come and drink, and this probably won't be the first time they come and drink. Without water, there wouldn't be anything like the number of impala that there are. They're incredibly effective grazers, incredibly effective browsers too, and so they really are a very successful animal when there is water around. Now, what I also want you to notice, oh dear, one of them got a frightened, oh dear. That male very nearly got himself into big trouble. He got a fright, leapt into the water and nearly got himself stuck in the water hyacinth. Now they're all alarm calling for no reason. And as Liam said to me, he said the trouble with impala, of course, is that they have the average intelligence of your average politician, which I think was a very accurate representation of the general IQ of the herd of impala. So the other thing I just want you to have a look at here is, Liam, if you can pan and a little bit of tilt across the clearing here at the dam. I was talking about how graze and browse around water will slowly become denuded during a drought because animals have to spend so much time closer to the water areas, and you'll see that starting to happen here. The graze is slowly starting to be taken out of this clearing. And if the drought continues, rather like on quarantine clearings, this will become a dust bowl. When it becomes a dust bowl, the danger, of course, is that when the rains come, all this topsoil is lost, it erodes. Again, an entirely normal process in many respects, just difficult for us to accept with our short human lifespans. Alrighty. Let us press on. Let's see what else we can find. I don't know if, I know we've been asked and I've been trying to find out, but I mean, I suppose I could just ask Ryan or Sean if this dam is pumped. I'm not sure. And I don't know that it is. There might be a borehole feeding it. Watch out, impalas. There they all go, running through the bush. Wimpy, my comms are very dodgy here, so if you get a message, you relay it to me. We're going to head up towards the Red Dam area, which is a sort of quarry that sometimes is full of water. I don't think there's any water in it now, but that's the general direction we're going in. I don't think there's much in the way of game drive going on here at the moment, so we may just pop across and bump into Shadow. That would be nice. Maybe Tingano, who was heading west yesterday on his tracks, he might be around here somewhere. So we'll just check around and see what is around here. Nothing in the way of lions at the moment. They will be back eventually. And of course, in case you perhaps thought that there are no lions to be seen in the area, that is not true. If you ever come as a guest to Arathusa or Juma, the traversing area that you'll cover is much larger than the traversing area that we were able to cover as WildEarth. So you'll certainly be able to go on Torchwood and Buffelshoek and Cheetah Plains and Coral and all the way around there, and you'll almost be certain to see lions in a 2 or 3 night stay. And leopards and everything else. You're absolutely correct. You say South Africa can't be a bad place to live. 10 million flies can't be wrong. No, those flies are definitely not wrong. John, it is a magnificent place to live. It is possibly the most varied country in the world. It was actually, I've said this before, recently voted the world's most beautiful country. Again, I don't know who the polls looked at. Here's some llamas. Actually waterbuck, of course. Young bulls and 2 cows. And John, there are mountains, incredible mountains. Drakensberg is some of the most beautiful mountains you'll find anywhere in the world. There are unrivaled beaches as far as I'm concerned. I've seen beaches all around the world, and I've searched for one that can better some of the beaches here that I've seen in South Africa, and I've yet to find one. We have Cape Town, of course, which, despite the somewhat unfriendly nature of the local populace, there is quite possibly the most beautiful city in the world. Then, of course, there's the wildlife. There's the Kruger National Park, iconic wildlife area of the world. And I think there are 20 other national parks here, something like that. 20 or so other national parks that you can go to. It's just a fantastic, and culture-wise, it's possibly one of the richest places you can ever go. So, lots to offer, John. Come out here, see it for yourself. And we'll give you some of those flies to take back to England. Frankly, I think they deserve a bit of rain. The climate is actually also pretty good. There are very few places where the climate is unbearable. Especially on the Highveld. Very mild winters, mild summers. Very lovely. I certainly feel very privileged to live here. Plated lizard just on that oh, can you see it? There, it's turned on. VMP, it's on the top of this. You got it?
It's gone now.
No, it's there. There's a giant plated lizard there. You see him?
Yeah, he just went behind.
There's another one. If you go to the right of where you were, there you go. You got him there?
Yeah, I got him.
Got him, there he is. Plated lizard there. So that, I think, is a giant plated lizard, and I saw it scuttling across the road, rushing for its termite mound nest. Now it thinks we can't see it. Ha 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 ha. And again, while we look at that lizard, which will be enjoying this weather, I'm astonished by the silence. It's not even 8 o'clock in the morning. The dawn chorus, while it should possibly be heading towards its quiet conclusion, it's just dead silent. All I can hear around the odd woodland kingfisher, hopefully chipper background. So I think a plated lizard, I don't know much about a plated lizard other than I think it's an insect eater. And it will eat termites, grasshoppers, and possibly other things. Let me just quickly check that in my multi-guide, which my mummy gave me a while back and has turned into a very useful book. Eats large insects, flowers, soft fruit, and leaves. Flowers, fruits, insects, and soft leaves, as opposed to hard leaves. Fair enough. It's not a lot, but there is certainly grass left here at Arathusa, and that kind of is a testament to the health of this landscape. So I think you will find that action will start to happen here once the water dries in other areas. Some more impalas to the right. Siberia Zumi, I don't know how to answer your question. You say we have a bird here that's similar to a mockingbird. Siberia, I don't know what a mockingbird is. I feel like I should, and I did at one stage. Is a mockingbird like a jackdaw?
There is a book about it, how to kill it.
To kill it, yes, how to kill it. Atticus Finch is the hero, yes. Well done, Graham. Very good, very unhelpful, but excellent knowledge there of English literature. I don't know can we just get an idea of what family a mockingbird belongs to, and then I'll be able to tell you if we have something similar. The Mimidae family, mocking singing birds, I don't know. I'm going to have to check that up for you. Thank you for that, Siberia Zumi. I got a feeling they're related in some way to the crows, but I'm not sure. Okay, let's go to Jamie. She's got some giraffe. Apparently a robin, I'm just getting some info from Final Control. It's not making a huge deal of sense to me, but I'll give it to you anyway. Robins and drongos do mimic other birds, and therefore it's quite similar. I'm going to just check this up quickly while you're off there. Go across to Jamie, have a look at a giraffe, and I'll try and get back to you with some decent answer there.
Actually been very lucky with giraffe today. We've got 3 females who have discovered the shade of the big jackalberry on Gowrie Cutline, accompanied by the song of the impossible to imitate woodlands kingfisher. And they're just quietly standing and ruminating. I'm not sure if James has commented on it, but already it is blisteringly hot. Today is going to be scorching. And they've decided to take a break from eating and just enjoy a bit of time ruminating. And hopping up the neck, this particular individual is our ever-present red-billed oxpecker, helping keep the giraffe free from ticks and parasites. There's a few of them around. There we go, well done, Tebs. You can watch the way that it combs through the fur with that beak. And I imagine if you're a giraffe and it catches an itchy tick, that must be a wonderful feeling. Not so much if you have any kind of an injury, at which point they become obsessive about it. Awesome. And as we were watching there, if you were keenly observing, you might have seen the bulge of the cud coming back up. She's now chewing. You watch carefully, we'll see her swallow and then bring the next one back up again. And Jose, you can see with the female giraffe as well, just looking at the horns. Yeah, she swallowed. And the next one's up. You can see how thin the horns are in comparison. And if we have a nice view of a male giraffe in the next few days, you'll be able to compare how thick versus thin they are. Female giraffe, they always have a slightly nipping around the base of the ossicone and then a bulge around the top. There you go, you can see what I mean. And the tufts of hair on top.
Approaching Rana River is the north.
You hear the woodlands kingfisher whistling away its happy tune. All three of them staring off indistinctly into the distance. Very nice, peaceful way to enjoy the last few moments. I actually came in this direction because I was wondering whether Karula might pop out. If it was indeed, and it most likely was her that James is tracking this morning. I know that the leopards love this jackalberry tree. It's a good place to find shade and have a bit of a breeze going at the same time. But it seems as though the tree is bare. We'll just have to see if she pops down for a drink. So keep your eyes on the damn camera. At some point or throughout the day in between the drives. You might well get lucky. She might come down. At least we'll have a good starting point for the sunset safari. The giraffe can actually be quite useful indicators determining where predators are. They very often stare all in the same direction. And it's a good idea to follow where they're looking and have a look at where they're looking. We did have a wonderful giraffe sighting yesterday on foot. We also had some other wonderful moments, and James Richards asked me to find a feather for him, and I did manage, but it was one of those ridiculous, nondescript little downy fluffy things. James, I'm glad you appreciated it and enjoyed it. I haven't forgotten though. I'm keeping an eye out for feathers. It's amazing how when all of a sudden you're looking for something and it seems to disappear. I haven't been able to find you a nice, interesting feather. And short of catching that woodlands kingfisher and acquiring one, I'll have to just keep looking. But I'm glad you appreciated it. Maybe one of those oxpeckers that's sitting on the back of the giraffe might be obliging enough to drop a feather or two. I'm afraid you'll have to settle for the ridiculous feather that I managed to find you. Unfortunately, I'm afraid I couldn't begin to guess which particular species that one came from. really wonderful morning, and I've enjoyed spending it with you. So we've had some really, really interesting action at the hyena den and some interesting behavior happening there. I'm still without an explanation as to what exactly was going on with that one adult that was there, the one that was calling and then anal pasting around the entrance to the den and spending a lot of time with November. I'm not sure exactly what it is that means. I know that James thinks that there could well be small cubs at the other den that he's found around in Bubu Road. Whether or not she's got cubs there and maybe she's moved them to the Gallagher Shortcut den, I honestly am not entirely sure, and it's just going to be a matter of time and watching that whole situation play out. But what was also incredibly fascinating to me was to see November call for the very first time. I think it's one of the cutest things I've ever heard, but also really interesting that they're capable of that contact call between clan members, even at the tender age of 2 months old, demonstrating a lot of adult behavior today, terrorizing some of the adults and some of the sub-adults, as well as imitating them in terms of anal pasting on top of where they anal pasted. And at one point, November went up to the grass stems and rolled in all of the anal paste that was around there. So interesting dynamics at play. I think we can start to guess that November might be a female, just judging by her precocious behavior. Either way, an amazing time spent at the hyena den and the promise of lots more to come, and to figure out a bit more about the clan. I think our understanding is gradually getting deeper and deeper, and we of course have you guys to thank as well for that and all of your contributions to our knowledge and providing some of the background information that perhaps we weren't around for. So we really appreciate that. Well, guys, thank you. I'm going to say a big goodbye, and well as to thank you to Tebs. Let's pop over to James so that he can say farewell as well. Bye-bye.
Right, a beautiful little herd of zebras here. Just quickly, the Mimidae, I did check it up. The Mimidae are a New World group of birds, so you only find them in the United States and possibly in South America too. New World passerines. Wonderful. Thank you for the drive, everybody. I think we've only got about 10 seconds left, 15. Big thanks to VM. Thank you to Jerry and Kirsty in the final control, and Jamie and Tebs on the other vehicle. We will see you later at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. I got through all of my words that I had to, and we'll see you later. Bye-bye.